And welcome back, everyone. Thanks again so much for being here. Welcome back to the Dynasty Force podcast with you on Wednesday, December 9th. Sorry, I had to plug my laptop in real quick. Thought I had it plugged in, but, got that little death soon notification that you don't want to see when you're in the middle of a podcast.
Yeah, man, I know how that goes, man.
With me, as always, the great and knowledgeable Billy Briz. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good today, Rob, man. You know, the challenge comes on tonight. Big challenge fan. Big season, double agents. Got a couple of my old vets coming back and a couple new people that I'm excited to see. Like, for example, they have Lolo Jones, if you ever heard of her. She's an American track and field Olympian and also bobsledding. Pretty excited to see her participate in the challenge. Me and my girlfriend like watching the show. So how about you, Rob? What do you got going on?
Tonight, I'm going to probably do some homework. This is I'm sure it is for you too, but the last week of the semester.
Yeah.
I don't actually have finals because I'm in one class and that class doesn't have a final. But my question to you, are you about to be a college graduate?
Yeah, man, about to be a college graduate this spring, man. Long time coming.
Oh, in the spring?
Knockdown. Yeah, in the spring.
I thought it was going to be now.
No, I took the semester off that junior year, that spring semester, and then all those credits didn't go through.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's coming soon, so reason to be hyped, and regardless, we got grinded out for this last week. I've been telling myself I got to do this homework for the past 3 days now, and here I am. Man. Haven't started it, but maybe after the pod. Hopefully after the pod. Quick announcement before we get really into the pod. Next week we will be live as usual. Maybe not today, like a Wednesday, but I will not be here because I have a wedding next week. My wedding.
Congrats on that, Rob.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So yes, as you can probably guess, because I'm getting married, I will not be here to podcast. So I will be basically away for the week. Billy will be here hosting. He'll have something dialed up for you, whether it's our normal show, whether it's a little Dynasty recap, because we are the Dynasty Force podcast. But whatever it is, Billy will be here. Billy may have a guest, so stay tuned as to who that may be. But yeah, we'll definitely work it out. We'll let you know on Twitter, and appreciate the support either way. Thanks so much. Anyway, back to the show, back to football-related topics and news. Follow us on Twitter at Dynasty Force Pod. You'll always see when the show goes live if you turn the notifications on. That's a handy little trick. So if you really like the show, which I don't blame you, I like it too, then I would do that. Dynasty Force Podcast on YouTube and on both. When you are watching the show, feel free to comment any questions that you have. Fantasy football playoffs this week, so it is a big week, and we know you may have questions, so feel free, whether you comment them on the show or just hit either of us up on Twitter. And speaking of our personal Twitters, here's where you can find us. If you can see it, you got me on the screen on the right at Fantasy Force FB. If you got Billy on the left getting bills, Bill, you want to tell them what you got going on Twitter?
What'd you say?
You want to tell them what you got going on?
Yeah, you can follow me over on Twitter at Getting Bills. I got a lot of things. Parlay Bill every day. Got parlays and plays coming out to you. A little bit choppy of a connection on my end. My fault for that.
You're good. You're good. We got you with the Parlay Bill out here.
Yes, sir.
Come win some money with Billy. what should be your New Year's resolution, Billy? Because we're coming up on that time.
Mm-hmm.
You should keep a record of how you do against the spread.
I should, man, but sometimes, man, that shit gets so complicated of just like keeping track throughout like different sports and stuff like that. Because like sometimes, like nights that I can't go to sleep, like I'll play like some tennis plays like 4 or 5 a.m. and like to think back on like playing those, and then I have 3 different sports books that I use, so it's like it's a lot, man. I'm trying to transition towards that. Probably when I get done school. For real, I'll probably have like the whole entire everything set up for it. But right now it's just a transition process. Make sure I got everything that the right process and techniques to go forward for years to come. Something I've been working on for a very long time.
I definitely feel that. My Twitter, at FantasyForceFB, as I mentioned, I retweet a lot of content, but I am known for my weekly matchup thread, which I'm going to work on this coming week, either Thursday or Friday. Hopefully I can have it out a little earlier this week. I think last week I posted Sunday morning, so I'd like to have it out earlier than that for all of your viewing pleasures. So I'll do my best to do that for you guys this week. All right. Now that we got the dirty work out of the way, we'll call it. We'll move on. The housekeeping. I like that a lot better than the dirty work. We'll move on to our icebreaker for today, which is who disappointed you most in fantasy this year. I have a picture of Michael Thomas on the screen because he's probably the biggest disappointment period in fantasy this year. I believe he was definitely the clear number 1 wide receiver drafted. He was probably around that 107 to 110 range in most drafts. And if you had Michael Thomas in this year, like it has not been good. Week 1 had a very disappointing week before getting injured at the very end of that game against Tampa Bay. And then we didn't really see him for 8 weeks after that. On the season, Michael Thomas has 2 good weeks. So, for someone that you drafted in the first round, that's really, a killer. You could also put Saquon Barkley in that category, but I mean, he's kind of been injured all season, and when he was on the field, he was okay. So, there's been, I think, 4 games with Michael Thomas, and he's only been good for 2 of them. So, like, the hit rate isn't even great there. So, Bill, I'll push this over to you first. Who disappointed you the most this year? I know we had some guys that we were hype on. We had some guys we weren't interested in. So, who is someone that you were hype on and let you down?
Yeah, man. One guy that I drafted across all my teams this year was Kenyon Drake of the Arizona Cardinals. Preseason, I thought that was a good situation for him. Nobody's going to play good under playing Adam Gase's team. So, I thought that was just a nutrition of that offense. But, one thing in Arizona that I didn't really account for that I should have accounted for mistakenly was the Kyler Murray rushing touchdowns. But they're coming at an absurd number this year. Murray hasn't really been an efficient passer this year, but he's just been getting the job done so much on the ground. That's like the reason why he's one of the highest fantasy scoring quarterbacks in one of the most historical fantasy seasons of history. So that's really affected Kenyon Drake's number. Usually you see the mobile quarterbacks help out the running backs' numbers, just less linebackers going towards them and stuff like that. You got to account for both guys in the backfield, but that's not really how that backfield worked out. And then Chase Edmonds also as well. He's been getting the job done in the passing game. Drake has been playing better these last couple of weeks, but if you drafted him as ADP, he's a guy in redraft that you probably tried to trade or thought about dropping once he got hurt, or it just wasn't the type of year that you expected out of Kenyon Drake. He seemed like one of those type of guys that would climb up into that RB1 tier for years to come. for the next 2 to 3 years, but it didn't really turn out like that. How about you, Ralph?
Yeah, just real quick on Kenyon Drake. On the season, he is the running back 15 in 11 games. So he's definitely not where you drafted him. I think he was a top 8 RB in most drafts. So he's not as good as he was. But he's not terrible. It's like that year where Le'Veon Bell was a top 5 pick in a lot of drafts, and I think he finishes the RB15. Never really hurt you in a week, but really didn't help your team either. No, yeah. For me, this season, if you were paying attention over the off season, I had big rookie hype for Cam Akers, running back for the Los Angeles Rams. I really thought he was going to step in. I brought out a lot of stats about the Rams and how Todd Gurley left so many vacated opportunities in that backfield.
Yeah,
and Darrell Henderson, a former third-round pick, and then they spend a second-round pick on Akers the year after. To me, that was saying they didn't have confidence in Henderson. You saw that week 1 when Malcolm Brown was the main guy. But then when Cam Akers went down with injury, it gave Darrell Henderson an opportunity, and he made the most of that opportunity. He's looked pretty good when he's been healthy and on the field so far. Not saying, Cam Akers now is starting to kind of show that he can be the guy, but now again he's sort of dealing with a shoulder injury too, so we'll have to see how that goes. But over the course of the season, Cam Akers has been basically irrelevant and not helpful to your fantasy team. And, that's a far cry from where I thought he was. I really thought he was just an insanely good value in the 6th round. He's not someone who destroyed my team by me not drafting him because he was going later in a lot of drafts. But he definitely disappointed me because I saw that ceiling, and I saw it coming to fruition. Here we are. It didn't happen. You could let us know who disappointed you. We've all been disappointed by someone. We all had our guys. We all were excited for different people.
Juju was me last year, man.
Yeah,
Juju, man. I still don't like Juju to this fucking day because of him last year, man. I could punch him in his face. He's when he does the dancing bullshit, the little TikTok dances when he scores a touchdown, like, you fucking faggot. You should have been doing that shit last year. I should punch you in your face.
We all, David Montgomery last year. I feel so like I don't even care what David Montgomery does. Like, I think he's pretty good right now. Let me look. Currently he's the RB11.
Dude, man, I full faded David Montgomery last week in DFS and got my ass
RB1.
Yeah, man. The running back that I was on, we'll talk about later on in the video, but I think he's a good play. Yeah, he's a good play still.
Yeah. All right. Like I said, you can let us know who disappointed you. You can comment. You can let us know on Twitter at Dynasty Force Pod, and we can either sympathize with you or no, we'll probably sympathize with you because there were a lot of disappointments this season. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, another good one. He had his solid weeks, but do you have any confidence in him now after last week?
Nah, man. I mean, last week was more of like a
injury. But, still, I don't know.
Nah, regardless of that.
Okay. All right, so we got some news to talk about. Let's break it down here with the first piece of news, which is John Gruden is not confident that Josh Jacobs will be available in Week 14. Bill, I know this for a fact. We mentioned last week on the podcast that if Devontae Booker was in free agency or on waivers in your league, you should pick him up because, we had the foot sprain with Joe Mixon, and he's still out. He's not going to play this week too. Mm-hmm. But this was potentially a multi-week injury with Josh Jacobs, not that we were saying it was definitely going to be, but there's a very realistic situation where it is a multi-week situation, and Devontae Booker really wasn't good last week. He saw a decent amount of opportunities. They play Indianapolis this week, so I wouldn't really be interested.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know, man. One thing that I didn't really like about that situation last week was the Raiders found themselves in the most negative game script fucking possible, man.
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
who would ever think that they would start off the game being down 14-0 against the Jets, and then at that point, it's just going to be Jalen Richard and Theo Riddick all day. They literally had to throw the ball in the second half, the whole entire second half. Hence why Darren Waller had I think it was like 8 catches for 202 yards and 2 touchdowns. It was just like it just wasn't a day for the passing game here. I think the biggest note here is what should fantasy owners really do with Josh Jacobs, because when he does come back, maybe the Raiders aren't really too high on giving him 30 amount of touches or 20 amount of touches, because last year the big problem with Josh Jacobs was he wasn't a full bell cow back. He had the profile, the opportunity, and the looks and the skills of a full bell cow back, but he could never get there health wise. And even at Alabama, man, he wasn't really like a full bell cow back there. He only played half of the snaps. So maybe all this snaps and usage is catching up to him this year. I think this is the first year in his career, probably since high school, that he's been getting 25, 30 touches a game. So it's all catching up to him. I would be a little bit concerned about starting Josh Jacobs if I was in the fantasy playoffs and they got through week 1 next week.
Yeah, definitely. Looking ahead to the Raiders' schedule, they play the Chargers on Thursday next week. If Jacobs doesn't play this week, I would be very surprised
if he doesn't play. Yeah, I would be surprised if he doesn't play next Thursday.
You would be surprised if he is inactive.
Yeah, next Thursday, if he's still inactive, that is a huge concern, because what the mindset here is you get him rested up on a short week right here. You don't really want a guy get banged up late in the season and have him play on a short week, especially in a primetime game against the Chargers, which is a divisional game. So that's a pretty big game there for the Raiders.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then the Dolphins would be in week 16. Chargers and Dolphins are actually solid matchups. So I would feel fine playing Josh Jacobs, who before this past week was the RB6 in fantasy on the season. So he's pretty solid. I would even feel fine playing Devontae Booker in those matchups if you had to, if Josh Jacobs was out. So something to look forward to, something to keep an eye on. Moving on, next piece of news. Bill, I'll let you take this one. Jalen Hurts, new starter for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, man. Hopefully he doesn't die this week. I have it in my write-up this week for this Saints-Eagles game. The biggest benefit of the Saints, I would say their biggest strong point, their defensive line of recent. The biggest problem with the Eagles, the offensive line of recent. So it's just like, which one will come out on top? Tired of seeing Carson Wentz out there and fucking stink it up. I don't think he's a bad quarterback long term. I just think he's just having a bad season. I think it's time for new blood here, because I always like to say Hurts could easily have been the Patriots starting quarterback right now if things went different on draft night and we didn't overspend at the quarterback position, because Belichick had Hurts as his number 3 quarterback in the order. So he would have drafted Hurts in that second round. So.
For those of you who don't know, Billy and I live in the Philadelphia area. I'm not an Eagles fan, but Billy is.
Yes, sir.
Basically, we interact with a lot of Eagles fans regardless.
Irrational Eagle fans.
I don't know how irrational they'll be this season. With there were so many disappointments on the Eagles end. So
yeah.
But as far as me weekly watching football, watching the Eagles games, I would just consistently go to the group chats where I'm in with my friends who are all Eagles fans, and just be like, "Damn, dude! Like, what happened to Carson Wentz? Like, what Every single snap, he insists on holding the ball for at least 5 seconds.
It's
He
like
has
he's scared.
he has no sort of. I understand that the receivers can't, separate, because that's a problem too. But with that, you can't just hold on to the ball every play. You have to do something. And with that, he has no pocket pressure. Like, there's so many plays where I'm just watching, and he'll try to run to avoid the rush, and then he'll end up running right into a defender. And
The inaccuracy problems too.
Part of that is the offensive line's problem. Like, he's pressured all the time, but at the same time, there are ways for him to avoid that pressure, and then he'll just run the other way, which ends up going into it's just.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a whole lot of things for Carson Wentz this season. Let me ask you a question as an Eagles fan, Billy. Should Doug Peterson be fired after this season?
I think they should fire the general managers, the owners, and stuff like that. But I think Doug Peterson's a fine head coach. He's had some weird play calling situations this year, but it's just a weird year in general overall. And I guess you could see it throughout the NFC East.
I will say that Philly did not have an offensive coordinator heading into this season, so that's a problem in my opinion. They were Super Bowl champions when they had Frank Reich as their offensive coordinator, so that says something to me.
That's why I say irrational Eagle fans, because I always see people tweet out, "We need to fire our offensive coordinator and Doug Peterson." Dude, you fucking idiot! We don't even have an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think they will fire their GM, but Howie Roseman. But I mean, like, you look at the report over the last 2 years in the draft. I mean, who's the left tackle that got hurt at the very beginning of Dillard?
Yeah.
He's fine when he's healthy, but he hasn't been healthy, so he's probably going. I think he'll be a good pick. But you look at the hit rate on the wide receivers over the past 2 years, like,
it's concerning.
Taking Jalen Reagor 1 pick ahead of Justin Jefferson.
No, that's not a bad pick. That's not a bad pick.
No.
The more concerning pick is picking a guy like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside over DK Metcalf. That is a concerning pick because that's a talent evaluation problem. You can't fully evaluate Reagor yet because he hasn't played a fully healthy season.
But at the same time, Justin Jefferson is elite. And we've already seen that. He's the wide receiver 4 on the season, by the way.
Bro, wide receiver from LSU.
Yeah.
Dude.
Bill, I think you are dealing with connection issues. I
said the other dude off of LSU had a better season than him last year.
Jamar Chase. He'll be coming out. He'll be someone we'll be talking about over the offseason if you continue to pay attention to the Dynasty Force podcast, as you should. But enough Eagle talk. Let's move on. This is not the Eagles Force podcast. This is the Dynasty Force podcast. So we'll move on here. Antonio Gibson suffered a toe injury in Week 13. Technically, he's questionable for this week, but his season status really is in doubt. Like, a turf toe injury is something that will keep you out. Like, Devontae Adams had turf toe last year. I believe last year. Right, last year.
Yeah.
And missed 4 weeks. And it's even worse on a running back who has to cut all the time and do all these, little acceleration and agility moves. I don't expect to see Antonio Gibson for the rest of the season.
Yeah, me either.
What are your thoughts on J.D. McKissick, Peyton Barber?
I feel like people are going to hype up J.D. McKissick, and I don't think he's a good play this week.
They play San Francisco, so I would agree with that. He's kind of more of like a play of like you're hoping he gets a lot of volume through the air.
He's the type of guy that you want to play when you think there's a garbage time situation. And I think we'll talk about this later. I don't like the game environment in that game.
Yeah, I agree. I really don't.
The game screams low, high, over, under, and I would bet the under on a low over, under.
I will say in the future, Seattle next week, Carolina. So, I mean, Carolina, I'm not
That's a good
super
matchup.
interested in.
No, it's a good matchup.
It's a good matchup for stereotypical running backs.
Yeah.
Like Antonio Gibson would have ate in the Carolina matchup. But
yeah, we'll see how these touches will come out throughout the.
Yeah, you're right. All right, let's move on. Christian McCaffrey. It's like a weekly thing where we just talk about Christian McCaffrey because he's such an important piece to every offense. But now, all right, so Christian McCaffrey has been inactive the past 2 games because of a shoulder injury, and now he was limited today with a new quad injury, which is never a good sign. You don't think
he plays?
It's.
This is the second time they did this, bro. Like, they did this 2 weeks ago, and they said, McCaffrey practice Wednesday, Thursday, limited Friday, Saturday comes around, not playing. Like, they know what they have in McCaffrey, and it's just sad to see McCaffrey. Yeah, the season's lost.
Yeah, they're not going to make
DJ Moore's hurt, too, also as well, so it's just like, what do you even, like, not even, like, one of those, like, what are you playing for? There's pride, but, like, there's just this difference between just stupidity of playing somebody. Just let McCaffrey chill for the rest of the season.
Yeah,
he knew this was coming.
He's paid $16 million a year. He's your clear franchise player. He's the best player on your team. You can't just, and they've been very cautious with him so far. I would not be surprised to see them be more cautious with him. That would suck for everyone, though, who was waiting on a return. Best of luck to everyone who owns Christian McCaffrey. I am one of those people. So, just hope that maybe this wasn't a big deal and it was just a little tweak. What were you going to say, Bill?
I said in the fantasy playoffs, you got CMC.
I do. It's one of those 2-week matchups, like this week and next week is my matchup.
You're talking about
the same team.
The ESPN matchup thing.
Yeah. So, I was feeling, I'm in a really tough situation. The dude I'm going up against is like clearly number 1 in points scored. I was hopeful that McCaffrey would be back, but it's looking
the right place.
Plus, I had Antonio Gibson on that team too, so it's just
that's not a good
rough. It's rough. At least it was free though.
Yeah.
All right, that will cover our news. So let's head into our weekly sort of hype and hate that we'll talk about as players we like in the matchups this week. Bill, I'll let you kick it off here for the hype at the quarterback position.
Yeah, the hype at the quarterback position is probably going to shock a lot of people here, but I'm kind of into the Jaguars quarterback here, Mike Glennon. If you're in the fantasy playoffs and you need a start quarterback spot here, I think Mike Glennon is definitely the answer. Glennon has played pretty decent so far, and I think the number that really I would like to highlight here is the 35 pass attempts in the first game and then 42 pass attempts in the last game also as well. The Titans defense is beginning towards these last couple of weeks, as we saw Baker Mayfield last week go for 334 and 4 touchdowns, and those 4 touchdowns all came in the first half. So this defense hasn't really shown the ability to stop anybody of recent. Been peeping that since they played Phillip Rivers and made Phillip Rivers look like he was in the Chargers days, not noodle arm Rivers. The Jags have been competitive back-to-back weeks here with Mike Glennon being the starter. They have covered against the spread the last 2 weeks that Glennon has been the starter, and I think they covered the spread again here against the Titans. How do you feel about that in a divisional matchup here?
I will say that I would not be caught dead playing Mike Glennon if I'm in the fantasy playoffs. But that said, if I'm doing a DFS lineup and I want to take a shot on a cheap guy, you could do much worse than Mike Glennon. I really, let's say Mike Glennon versus Mitch Trubisky this week. Bears going up against Houston, which is a great matchup for Trubisky as well. Which way would you go?
I would probably say Glennon over Mitch. Mitch really, really turned me off last week. Mitch's games that you want to play him is against the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
Those two games are off the board.
3 rushing touchdowns last week by the Bears, which doesn't happen a lot. But,
Yeah.
I can see the point for Mike Lennon, though. I own him in the Dynasty League, Superflex.
Yeah, I'm just following the pass attempts, man.
Might have to throw him in there. Well, we'll have
man.
to see.
Follow those pass attempts, Rob, man. Really a lot of pass attempts.
Definitely. For me, at the quarterback position, I'm going to hit on Matt Ryan, quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. It has not been exciting for Matt Ryan of recent for the Atlanta Falcons. You mentioned earlier the New Orleans Saints and how great their defensive front has been, how their defense as a whole is playing elite. Well, the Falcons have played the Saints 2 of the past 3 weeks. So that right there will give you a stink on Matt Ryan. In fact, let me pull up exactly how good Matt Ryan has been over the past 3 weeks, because I'm sure it's not good. And it's probably, something where a lot of people are going to be out on Matt Ryan. Quarterback 22 overall, and that ranks him behind the likes of Carson Wentz, the likes of Kyler Murray, who has been very disappointing in these last 3 weeks as well, behind Tom Brady, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen, all of whom have only played 2 games to Matt Ryan's 3 in that stretch. So it's been disappointing for Matt Ryan. This is the week to right the ship, though. This week, the Atlanta Falcons go up against the Los Angeles Chargers, which is, I haven't checked the official over-unders yet, but
that game is definitely going to go over. It's one of the highest over-unders on the board, but I would even incline to say that game goes over. A lot of the Chargers games besides last week have gone over with Justin Herbert, so I definitely do like that play.
The Atlanta Falcons are the best matchup for quarterbacks to go up against on the season. So Justin Herbert and the Chargers are going to be able to score points. That said, the Atlanta Falcons, who have a good offense in general, are going up against the Chargers, who are 6th against quarterbacks. So it's also a good matchup for Atlanta. Like you mentioned, both have pretty poor defenses, high over-under. I like Matt Ryan here. I think he's a smash play this week. Running back position, Bill, I'll let you take it over.
Yeah, running back position. I talked about this on the Pub Sports Radio video last week. He was one of my locks. Didn't get the job done, unfortunately, because of David Montgomery. But I like Myles Gaskins here. He returned from the IR last week. He was out for 4 weeks. But
he got work.
He got the work, man. I feel like he's going to continue to get the work. It's hard to find a weak spot on this Chiefs team. But if you had to elect a weak spot, it would definitely be their defense. And then most importantly, I would say the run defense is really poor. And I think the Dolphins are going to have to go into pass-first mode here. The Chiefs are going to put points up on the board. And I think Myles Gaskins has a safe floor, and he can accomplish through the yards over efficiency and get the job done here and get people through the couple weeks of the fantasy playoffs, because I think Myles Gaskins is the type of guy that he might be on your fantasy bench and you think like, hey, man, this dude got me a couple wins in the early part of the season. Do I play him? I saw that he got the play. I saw that he got activated off the IR last week, blah, 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 blah. And I think you should play Myles Gaskins this week.
Now, unrelated question, but how long do you think Tua stays in this game against Kansas City?
I think he plays the whole game.
Okay. I mean, we'll see. I don't have as much confidence as you. I think they'll kind of get boat raced early and try and light a spark, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll see for sure. Interesting play though. I like Myles Gaskin. I think he will have a big workload, and they'll have to rely on him this week. So I like the pick. For me, I'm taking a either or situation here. I am hyped for either DeAndre Swift or Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson would only be in the case that DeAndre Swift is not active. If DeAndre Swift is active, I would most certainly be interested in the Detroit Lions going up against the Green Bay Packers, who currently rank as the third best matchup for running backs to go up against. The reason that I would be interested in Adrian Peterson is because the Packers have a very good passing defense. They rank very high against quarterback so far this year. Now, things could change. As you saw last week, the Lions, after firing Matt Patricia, went with a more pass-heavy approach and downfield attack. So that is possible that they could lean away from the kind of run-heavy approach that they've been on, the short passes to the running back. That said, it'll only increase efficiency in the running game. And Adrian Peterson, he's been solid since Swift has been out. I think Swift has missed the past 3 weeks, so that's a time span that I'm going to look into right now, how Adrian Peterson has done over that stretch. He is the running back 13, which is surprising. Yes, it's been on the back of touchdowns, but he is the goal line back should Swift miss. But if Swift is active, Swift is the best play. He's the most talented back here. He's a good receiver, and he was involved around the goal line before. So either way, I think you can hit with either of these backs, and they'll both have to be relied on in Week 14. Bill, you were saying interesting in a nice little high pitched voice there.
No, I'm not playing AP, dog. I can't play AP.
Just the age factor,
I just can't play not good players.
I mean, he's not terrible. He used to be great.
Dude, he used to be great when we were in middle school.
Future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and then he started beating his kids. Yeah, I'm joking.
It all went downhill from there.
Yeah, it all went downhill from there.
Your last type here, you're actually going to touch on a tight end, while I touch on a wide receiver. So how about your tight end here?
Yeah, man, my tight end here kind of connects towards that Falcons-Chargers game. Hunter Henry, owners may be wondering to start Hunter Henry after having only one catch for 5 yards last week. But previously, before that, he was getting really hot with Justin Herbert. Expect this Chargers and Falcons game to be a shootout. The Falcons have allowed the 5th most fantasy points per game to the tight end position this year. I think Herbert gets a touchdown to Henry. Sometimes Herbert likes to spread the ball around and not really focus on anybody besides Keenan Allen and just other ancillary amount of targets. Austin Eckler. But I think this week we see Hunter Henry get inside the end zone. And at the tight end position, all you have to do is score a touchdown and be relevant for that week.
I'm actually kind of surprised that you didn't take someone like Dalton Schultz here. As Dallas is going against.
I don't like Dallas though. I don't like that game environment, man.
No, I feel that, and it's hard to rely on. But
two slow-paced teams.
Andy Dalton revenge game.
Yeah, but two slow-paced teams, man. Can't.
I'm sorry, but the revenge game narrative, I'm a sucker for it.
Yeah,
it gets me every time. All right. For me, I'm going to be hype on Curtis Samuel this week for the Carolina Panthers.
He's actually on the COVID IR.
All right. So this is assuming that Curtis Samuel plays. He is not tested positive, but he is a high-risk contact because DJ Moore tested positive. So should Curtis Samuel play, I would be hype on him. Let's say he doesn't play, a little pivot. I mean, Robbie Anderson obviously would be the pivot. Yeah. So Curtis Samuel, though, I will highlight him, assuming he plays. I have not heard that he has tested positive, so I do not believe that he, at this point, will be out for sure. He has plenty of time to test negative. However, for Curtis Samuel, he has been phenomenal in recent weeks. Not recent weeks, But there was a stretch in where Christian McCaffrey, forgot who he was at first, even though he was one of the best running backs in football. Christian McCaffrey was out for a number of weeks. Curtis Samuel stepped in and really started heating up from weeks 8 through 12, which is, pretty significant amount of time, 5 weeks. That's a good sample. And it's actually the last 5 games that the Panthers have played. Curtis Samuel is the wide receiver 5, which is very interesting. He's not someone that you would expect to be that highly ranked, but he was scoring touchdowns. He was very involved. And if DJ Moore is out this week, it opens up a huge opportunity here for Curtis Samuel against the Denver Broncos, who are less than good against the pass this year. They've really been a team that has been focused on shutting down the running game and allowing teams to pass on them. And I could see more of that in Carolina, whether Christian McCaffrey is active or not. How do you feel about Curtis Samuel? Say he's active.
I like the play, but if CMC plays him, kind of would be off of Curtis Samuel. I think one of the things that have really helped his floor these last 5 weeks is CMC being out and him getting touches in the running game.
Yeah, he has been involved as a runner too, which I also think adds to his upside. So I agree with the fact that CMC would hurt his value a bit, especially because if CMC is back, he takes away in the passing game as well. So
it's just like a double. It's like a double negative. You feel me?
Yeah. We'll see on CMC. I think even if McCaffrey's back, you can flex Curtis Samuel. Probably not with the same upside that you had hoped for without McCaffrey, but regardless, I think you can play McCaffrey or Samuel. Just lower expectations. All right. For me, I will lead off here with the hate. And for my quarterback that I'm going to hate on this week, it's going to be very obvious. Derek Carr. It was hard for me to kind of look at the schedule and find a quarterback to hate on because there's, even the quarterback that you hate on this week, Bill, I don't really think I would bench him in most situations. It's just a difficult week, so I had to take the guy who's going up against the Indianapolis Colts. But Derek Carr last week going up against New York, Bill mentioned it at the top of the show, but New York got out to an early lead, and Vegas was passing for most of the second half. So that was not really planned game script, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Planned game script for for Vegas would be that they are run heavy. They probably will not be able to do that this week because Indianapolis has a very good run defense, but Indianapolis has a very good defense, period. So I don't think, even if they can't run, I don't think Carr will find success through the air. And then, just remember the week before that, they went up against Atlanta. It looked like a smash play.
Yeah.
Ain't disappointed. So Carr is someone that I don't think you can really trust right now, especially going into the Indianapolis matchup. To me, though, this week, this isn't me saying, don't stream Carr. Obviously, you're not going to choose to play Carr when you have limited options. Or, a good amount of options going up against a tough matchup. But for me, instead, I would say he's a full bench, super flex leagues, 2 quarterback leagues. If you have a good third option, I would likely not be playing Carr at all. Mike Glennon going up against the Tennessee Titans, I'd probably be more interested in him than playing Derek Carr this week. Do you feel that same way, Bill?
Yeah, I don't blame you, man. This isn't really a good spot for the Raiders here.
Yeah. How about you at the quarterback position? I mentioned that I'm not even, too interested in going against your guy, but it's a rough week for picking a quarterback to be against.
Yeah, man, a stud QB that really got a lot of people proud to the fantasy playoffs this year. Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. This game against the Steelers, I feel like, has 2 outcomes. Either it's going to be a shootout and defenses don't matter, or it's just going to be an ugly defensive game. In my opinion, I think the game being played in Buffalo, cold winter weather in upstate New York, doesn't really fare well for this team. The Steelers haven't really been looking too hot. They usually play down the competition, play up the competition, one of those type of teams. The game environment here kind of concerns me. It feels like more of like a 23-17 type of game, or like a 24-20 type of game. Not a type of game where you really want to have Josh Allen in there, because Josh Allen really excels in the type of games where he can really do Josh Allen things, which is scramble out to his strong hand and just throw the ball deep and do his best Patrick Mahomes impression.
I will say the reason that I'm not necessarily against Josh Allen this week is because we saw him in a tough matchup last week against San Francisco, and he had a pretty solid game. I know San Francisco's defense is not Pittsburgh's defense, but actually Pittsburgh suffered a few separate injuries on their defensive line last week. TJ Watt wasn't hurt, but I know their middle linebacker got hurt. I think they lost a corner or two. So some things to keep an eye on. You were going to say?
Yeah, but I can't really say that Josh Allen was in a bad spot last week. Dude, the 49ers, that was their first game playing in a new stadium. They got kicked out of the stadium. They had to play in Arizona. It was a dome game. Obviously, two quarterbacks are going to excel more in a dome game than they would in an outside weather type of game. And that's the reason why I feel like he should be on the hate list, because let's say if you have Josh Allen in your lineup and you're playing on like an ESPN team where you don't have a lot of flexibility in your other spots, I would probably shoot for a little bit more upside than try to go for a safe floor. That's the reason why I put him on that list. Because let's say if you have Josh Allen or something like that, and you have like a wide receiver on your bench like Mike Williams or something like that, I would probably put in Mike Williams as my flex, just by the off chance if he does have a ceiling game, I can capture that ceiling while still getting Josh Allen's floor instead of just shooting for the floor. You know, it's the fancy playoffs. You want to win or go home.
Definitely. Remember when I made Curtis Samuel a hype for the week like 5 minutes ago?
Yeah.
And I said my pivot would be Robbie Anderson. No, my pivot is Mike Williams. How did I not mention Mike Williams?
Dude, that's what I said.
He's another great play this week. It's just a shame that the one league where I have Mike Williams, the one and only league, I'm on bye this week. So, you know, sometimes the bye hurts.
Yeah.
Sometimes that one seed hurts. As I look down on everyone from my pedestal here. Going on here to the running back position, I'm going to hit on Cam Akers. He hit a season high last week in snaps, in usage, in yards. He had a touchdown. Cam Akers looked pretty good. And he was a guy I mentioned at the top of the show. He's one of the most disappointing players for me this season because I had such high expectations. This week, and the reason that I kind of am reflecting on this, I was tagged in a poll on Twitter of who to flex this week for a pivotal playoff matchup. It was 3 different people. I don't remember who the third player was. I wouldn't have played him anyway. But the main one was between Brandon Cooks going up against Chicago this week, or Cam Akers against New England. New England is not as bad of a matchup as most people would think that it is. But that said, Cam Akers has a shoulder injury, and this is the Los Angeles Rams. This is a team that can get away with using either Darrell Henderson or Malcolm Brown or Cam Akers at the running back position. Cam Akers looked really good last week, but I think his shoulder injury could hinder him on a short week. And this is the fantasy playoffs. Cam Akers probably has more upside than Brandon Cooks this week, but it's definitely a situation where he has a realistic floor of 0. And you are in the fantasy playoffs, you don't want to play a guy with a floor of 0. You want to play a guy where you're going to get at least something, has upside for more. Unless you're, the 6 seed going up against the 3 seed, who's the highest scoring team in the league, and you really need that upside, I probably wouldn't be playing Cam Akers this week. How do you feel about that, Bill?
Yeah, man, I definitely do feel you. He feels like one of those type of plays that kind of grades out well on paper, but in the long run end up burning you.
By the way, New England's defense last week, 45-0 against the Chargers.
Yeah.
And Justin Herbert had been looking phenomenal up to that point. So not saying that the Rams offense is the Chargers offense, because it's not. Coaching situations are much different and much better for the Rams. But regardless, New England's defense is improving a bit.
Yeah.
So maybe this isn't the matchup to target. How about you at the running back position here, Bill?
Yeah, the running back that I am down on this week is pretty obvious, but just in case if you just thought about playing him. Eagles running back Miles Sanders. Like I said earlier, the Saints defensive line is one of their strong points, and the Eagles offensive line is one of the weak points. So that doesn't really bear well for the running back here in this spot. And then on top of that, Miles Sanders used to get there by touches. But of recent, man, he hasn't really gotten the onslaught amount of touches that we are used to him seeing. And then a guy returned to this team last week that gave us headaches last season, and he's given us headaches at the end of the season also as well. The guy that I'm talking about is Jordan Howard. He got signed to the Eagles last week after he got cut from the Dolphins. He played last week against the Packers. I feel like some weird way or some situation he's going to get a certain amount of touches that's going to be annoying and affect Miles Sanders. I have him as a low-end RB2, RB3 this week, which doesn't get the job done in the fantasy playoffs.
I was listening to the Fantasy Footballers over the weekend, and they were talking about this situation where, Jordan Howard just inexplicably comes in off the street, and gets these touches. Doug Peterson, obviously there's a problem with the Philadelphia offense. Doug Peterson sat down, broke it down, and was like, okay, what do we need to fix? And his ultimate decision became get Jordan Howard involved. it's who I won't go in depth, but Miles Sanders is obviously the best back on this team. He should get all the work. Maybe not all the work, but he should get 80%.
75 at least minimum.
At least, and definitely all the passing down work, and he's just not. Now, like you mentioned, New Orleans, reasons to stay away. Miles Sanders is a full bench this week. Remember when I said I have the 1 seed, and I'm kind of sad about it because I can't play Mike Williams now? Kind of happy because I don't have to play Miles Sanders. So here we are. Maybe I'm not on my pedestal after all. All right, I'll round it out with my wide receiver here. Not the biggest bench in the world, but maybe the upside here is cap for Marvin Jones for the Detroit Lions. Like I said, Kenny Golladay, I don't expect him to play this week. And in weeks where Kenny Golladay doesn't play, Marvin Jones sees so much opportunity that at the very least, he's going to be a top 30 guy, in my opinion, because the floor is, he's just going to see so many targets through the air. So in which case, Marvin Jones is a guy where I'm not going to bench, I don't think, but he's a guy where I'm definitely not excited for the upside. Jair Alexander is a true lockdown corner in the NFL, and he is a guy that I believe can shut down Marvin Jones here. Real quick, Detroit Beastie, it only took him an hour to comment, but here he is. Guys, good evening. Welcome, Detroit Beastie. Thank you for the comment. For those of you who don't know, Detroit Beastie is easily our biggest fan, the true commenter consistently, and we appreciate the effort. You are playing DFS this week. Detroit Beastie's
bottom of the barrel
is Jinx, by the way, is a must. Go check it out on his Twitter. His username, Detroit Beastie. I'm sure he has it pinned or something, so you can see it. very easily. But worst case scenario, I have it retweeted somewhere down the line. But it's a very helpful and essential article. He hits every week. Definitely a great article. Definitely something you gotta check out. I think, did he mention Matt Ryan? I don't think he mentioned Matt Ryan on the article. He should have. Why didn't you mention Matt Ryan? I don't even know what the price is. Just gotta mention. All right, Marvin Jones though. More so, the upside is capped. Like if you're playing Marvin Jones at wide receiver, maybe you play a guy like Cam Akers at flex over Brandon Cooks because you're hoping for the upside then instead of the floor, since you're getting a floor in Marvin Jones, if that makes sense.
Yeah, guy I'm not really too high on this week. He almost actually made my hate list, but I didn't want to put him on there because I don't know about the Kenny G situation this week.
Yeah.
I don't think it makes a difference regardless. We saw what was the dude's name? Quintez Cephas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's been getting. Finally, the air yards have been catching up to real yards.
Yeah,
and he's scored a big one last week.
He's a solid player. It's just sometimes it takes a little bit for rookies, and I think
especially the air yard guys. The air yard guys are always hard to gauge.
Yeah. You want to round us out here at the wide receiver position here, Bill?
Yeah, man. Let me round this out with a good episode here. Started the fantasy week season for the playoffs, and my last fade of the week is going to be Deebo Samuel here of the San Francisco 49ers. Shanahan has been force-feeding Deebo the ball since he came back from injury. However, I think Mullins getting fantasy points to the wide receivers. Defensive line has been absolutely on fire. I'm not a fan of this spot for the 49ers. Get it done. How about you?
Yeah. Originally I was thinking Deebo, I don't know about that because he's been so good. He's been force-fed the ball, and the way that he gets the ball is just so perfect for him because he just gets out in space, and then from there he just does his own thing. But basically their way of getting Deebo the ball in space is jet sweeps and those little tap passes.
Yeah.
But that's where the defensive line comes into play, and if they can contain, which, they when healthy, Washington, Pittsburgh, and San Francisco have the three best defensive lines in football. I believe they can contain Deebo Samuel on the end arounds, and maybe they put less pressure on Nick Mullins in that case. But I think you take it away a big part of the San Francisco offense at that point, and I agree with your take. I'm not excited to play Deebo this week. Good episode for sure. Not completely done though. Have a few more points to hit on. Like, why are you not yet following Dynasty Force Pod at Dynasty Force Pod on Twitter and Dynasty Force Podcast on YouTube? Just do it, and then we'll follow you back because we're so nice and courteous. Bill, one last shout out to your Twitter and anything you got going on.
Yeah, at Getting Bills, you can see some stuff that we got going on over there at Pub Sports Radio. If you're into the betting side of things, sometimes fantasy is fun and all that, but sometimes we want to be paid by the daily. Definitely. And that's the reason why we like the sports betting stuff. If you're looking for some sports betting content, it's always nice to get different minds and ideas. That's the reason why I tell people to follow me over on Twitter at Getting Bills. I retweet my colleagues like you and then my other ones over there at Pub Sports Radio. So, between both of those information, you'll find a nice new onslaught of followers that are informational. And I know that you like to do the same thing on your Twitter. Show the love for the people.
Sure, definitely. At Fantasy Force FB, just catch all my content. Or not even my content, just content that I retweet from others, take from them at that point, and then, share it with you. And, I've mentioned this before, but basically, my opinion is not, I'm not 100% accurate. No one in this industry is 100% accurate. And that's why I want you to be able to see as many opinions as possible. That way, you are there.
Yeah.
You have as much knowledge as possible, as many opinions as possible, and you can formulate your own opinions off that. So
You
that's
know what they say, Rob? Let us help you become a fantasy player.
yeah.
Hashtag making fantasy great again.
Honestly, like people will message me for like roster help. Oh, who should I start here? And I'll tell them obviously, but I don't want to do that. Like I want to just help you know who to start. And that's not saying anything to the if you are listening to this and you're one of those people who hit me up and
Don't stop hitting them
don't
up.
stop, but I definitely want you to learn, and that's what I'm here for. And I mean, Billy and I could both do that. Like we could, if you hit us up asking a question like, hey, I heard you mention Cam Akers on the podcast. Is it like a bad play? And then you give us these reasons as why you think maybe he's a good play, and we can kind of just have a nice little discussion on, just some inside information that maybe you weren't thinking of originally that can help you in the future and become a better fantasy player. Real quick before we get out of here, what'd you say, Billy? Billy's connection has not been the best today.
My face.
No, you're good.
Yeah, terrible.
Billy and I have a running Survivor series. For those of you who have listened for an extended amount of time, you know how that's going. And you can see it here on the screen, a nice little recap. All the little logos at the bottom. Billy on the season is 9-3 with a tough loss last week with Chicago losing to Detroit. Me, I, on the other hand, took a very tough win, I would say, with the Raiders beating the Jets on the very last play of the game, where they should not have beat the Jets. But hey, it happened, and I benefited. I've closed the gap here to a 1-game gap. Bill, you want to talk about why you like the Panthers this week against the Broncos?
Let's not. This is the team that was left. Not really a conviction play, and probably not even a play that I'm going to bet on. I usually like to pick the bets that I play. Wish we had some other stuff that we could like play, but one of the things that we do over at Pub Sports Radio is we have a Wolf Spread app. So it's like all of our you should definitely join the app though. We all join like a thing, and like we have like a weekly $2,000 budget that we have to bet on the games. And I usually like to do the super locks, and man, would I not even I would even spend fake money on betting on the Panthers this week against the Broncos. So I don't know if I would spend my real money on it.
For reference, just what everyone actually I updated the Survivor for next week already, even though I'm not even going to be here next week. Oh well.
You'll send your pick in.
I will. But the teams that we had to choose from, besides the Panthers, and as you can see, I took the Falcons. The Broncos in the same matchup with the Panthers. Giants. I believe the Giants are going up against They're going up against some NFC team, I believe. I don't remember who they're going up against exactly. But the Bengals,
Cardinals.
Jets, yeah, I thought it was one of them. So Giants against the Cardinals, Bengals against the Cowboys, Jets going up against Seattle, Detroit, who's going up against Green Bay, and then Washington going up against San Francisco. None of them are kind of games that are like clear, picks. So we're at that stretch where it's just going to be rough. And Bill, next week is even worse. Just to let you know, next week.
I can only imagine.
This week I'm taking the Atlanta Falcons going up against the Los Angeles Chargers. We've talked about it. This is going to be a shootout, but I think the Falcons, who have been playing better of recent, I think they can edge out the win here. We'll see. We'll just have to see. This might be the straw that breaks the camel's back if And if the Chargers can't win here, maybe Anthony Lynn does get the axe before the season ends. We'll have to monitor that and see how it goes. Thanks again to everyone for tuning in. Reminder that next week I will not be here. Billy will be here. Billy will have something planned for you. So it's very exciting. And yeah, hope you enjoy your week. Hope you have great success in the fantasy playoffs. And I hope I have the same too, honestly. Bill, I'm sorry that you didn't have a great season, but you know,
We'll
it
be
happens
back.
to the best of us.
Yeah, it was a decent DFS season, so I can't complain.
That is something, that matters. That definitely matters. Thanks again for tuning in. Catch you later here at the Dynasty Fourth podcast.